Becoming super fantastic, mastering excellence in every aspect, featuring Gary Gregory. Join us on a transformative journey with Gary Gregory, a visionary leader who unravels the secrets to achieving excellence in every facet of life. In his enlightening session, Gary delves into the power of self awareness, overcoming mental barriers, and the significance of understanding your who, why, and how. Discover how aligning your principles and values can harmonize your thoughts, words, and actions, propelling you towards a super fantastic state of being. Whether seeking personal growth, professional development, or a complete life transformation, this guide is your key to unlocking unparalleled excellence. Welcome to the Wellness Driven Life Show, where you're about to go on a wellness driven ride. I'm excited to share a little bit more about the guest we have today on the show. Gary Gregory is a transformational leader, a dedicated husband and father, and a two-time best-selling author. With over 20 years of leadership experience in the student housing and multifamily sector, Gary combines his professional and personal experiences as a former sponsored triathlete, Ironman, and ultra-marathoner to inspire others. His writings, including the Super Fantastic series and a goal journal, provide practical tools for personal growth. Guided by the belief that the best gift one can give is the best version of oneself, Gary empowers individuals to unlock their potential and make a positive impact. I am so pleased to help welcome to our stage today, Mr. Gary Gregory. Welcome.
April, thank you so much. I have to say that that introduction was absolutely mesmerizing. That was great stuff.
Thank you. Well, it makes it a little easier when you get to say great stuff about incredible human beings, you know? It's just beautiful, the people that we have here on the Wellness Driven Life Show, including yourself. And I'm so thrilled to dive into this because it always starts with ourselves. And you really hone in on that for people. You guide them in such a beautiful way. So we're going to talk a lot about that. Now, let's, though, get started by sharing a little bit more about yourself so the audience can get to know you more.
Oh, thank you, April. And as you mentioned, I'm a husband and father. We just celebrated 30 years of marriage this past January. So just huge celebration. Father of 4 kids, and just an absolute blessing. And as you mentioned, I've been in leadership capacity for quite some time, as you know, leading a family with my wife, and then in a career-wise, leading in different capacities as well. So that's been part of my journey. And the great thing that I've really enjoyed is discovering myself so that I can become a better version of myself for the people around me. And that includes starting with my family, my wife first, my kids. And then if I can get that right, if I can continue to improve to be a better husband, to be a better father, those skills, those talents, and those lessons that I learned from being that translates over to my career. And I think a lot of us mix that up, where we try and develop ourselves and our career first and just by default let family happen. And I think that a lot of us get that out of order. So that has been one of the biggest lessons that I have learned in my life is getting the family right, that order, and then everything else. I know I kind of went off kilter for you there, but it's just so important to me, is making sure the order of your life. People talk about work-life balance, but I believe it's an order. Get the family right. That'll support everything outside that.
Life work balance.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I don't think you went off at all. I think that you bring this very incredible perspective of that. And, as you were saying that, it made me think of guests that I've interviewed that talk about those lessons often, about how they weren't paying attention to family as much. I had a guest on the show that literally moved to another state in a rural area to attempt to spend more time with his family, with his children, to just kind of change the environment and the scenery in order to get that to really be an improvement in his life. And so yes, it is a very, very common lesson that many people learn when we do spend so much time creating ourselves in the business world, in that aspect, and yet everything else is pushed to the side. It's difficult to create a balance when you're gun ho in that. And yet there's also seasons of life, I would venture to say, where we do need to push forward more so in certain areas in order to get where we need to go, and then create more of that balance. I'm curious what you would say to that.
Oh, absolutely. And there's foundations that you have to build. So when those seasons of life come about, you have a really good solid foundation. So, and that foundation has to be the family. It has to be your spouse, your kids, and you could even call it, I call it your family of origin or your family of choice. So your family of origin are the people that you're born into, your mom, dad, your aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters, and so forth. Your family of choice are those people that you choose to be around. Those are your alignments that you're like, I'm choosing to do life with you because we hold similar values, similar, expectations out of life, ideals, and so forth. When you get that, that becomes your foundation in your life. And so when these seasons of life come about, maybe there's a promotion opportunity or there's a difficulty at work, you're struggling with the different aspects of your career, whatever that is. When that foundation is solid, your family, your spouse, your kids, your family of origin, your family of choice, when that foundation is solid, then anything that comes at that, you've got a great foundation to stand on and to work through and to grow through those seasons that come at you. Maybe you get laid off, maybe you get fired, maybe there's a promotion. So there's all different kinds of aspects, but it's all about creating a solid foundation. And I'll use the tree analogy. When the wind blows, it's the tree that has the deep roots connected with other trees that will survive. It's the ones with the shallow roots that don't necessarily survive all the time when the wind blows and the difficulties and the storms come about. So I truly believe that foundation, family, spouse, family of origin, family of choice, is that foundation. Order that right so you can survive those storms and those seasons.
Well, we need each other. And we excel so much further when we have more than just ourselves that are to create incredible things in the world. And I love the analogy of the tree. And I love that you bring that up because they're doing so many studies on trees and how they interact and the energies around them. And it's fascinating to me. But you're correct. When they're tied onto each other, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And the wind blows, the storm is here, and yet and I also really appreciate you bringing up that it's not just family of origin, it's the family of choice. And when I think about that, it makes me think of surrounding yourself with, let's just say, the 5 people that inspire you the most, right?
Mhm.
So it's creating the people that you really look up to, that inspire you the most, and really solidifying what you intend for yourself, who you want to be, because other people are inspiring you.
Oh, and I think you hit it perfectly. Who you want to be, and there's a key word in all of that. It's family of choice. It's an intentional choice to be around certain individuals. If you're not choosing who you want to be around, then by default, you're going to surround yourself with just random people. And I believe it's Jim Rohn that speaks about you become the average of the 5 people you surround yourself. So if you're by default surrounding yourself with people that are not who you want to become, then inevitably you're going to become something less. If you choose that family of choice, you make that decision to say, hey, these are the alignments that I want to connect with, that I want to surround myself with, I want to do life with these people, then you become the average of those people you choose. That's your choice. And it's intentional. There's an intentionality to say, hey, I want to hang out with April because I see where she's at. I see what she's doing. She's got fruit in her life. She's successful. I want to learn from her. I want to grow with that. And that's a decision you make. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You need to leave that room and go find another room where you are not the smartest person in the world, and go learn from those people. Choose to surround yourself with people that you can learn from, you can grow with together. And when things get tough, and we'll just go back to the seasons that happen, those people that you choose to surround yourself with that become alignments, when you fall down, those are the people that are going to come around that are either going to help you get up, or they're going to encourage you and inspire you to get up and keep going and learn from that lesson.
Yes, absolutely. So if you don't mind, I would love to talk a little bit more about this, because I think that this is a topic where people, when they're first learning about this, first understanding, coming to the understanding of where I should surround myself around others that are smarter than myself, that really will help lift me as I'm climbing. And so, but getting there can be a little difficult and challenging at first, especially if you're, maybe it is family, or you are a people pleaser, right? It's difficult to break free of certain relationships. So do you have any examples, maybe in your own life or in others, of where you can gracefully navigate a transition like that to creating a good surrounding of people who inspire you?
Yeah, it all comes through networking. And you want to find a place in which you can network. You can connect with people that have similar values, similar principles, and ambition, if you will. And online, we'll just start online as an example. LinkedIn is an incredible place where you can connect. There's so many different networks where you can connect with people that have very similar ambition or inspiration, that they want to grow, they want to do this or that. Church is another incredible way that you can connect with people that have similar ideals and principles and values as well. But there's if you have that awareness that okay, you got to make a decision. Where do I want to go? Who do I want to become? And once you make that decision, then you start investigating where it is that those people are located. And then you just simply do an introduction. I myself am an introvert. And so it's incredibly difficult for me to reach out and connect with people to say, hey, I like what you're doing. You are what I want to become in some capacity. I want to learn from you. That's crazy difficult for me as an introvert. But I realize that if I want to get to where I want to go, then I have to connect with like-minded people, like principled people and valued people, so that I can get there. You and I were talking about Joel Zeff, who is just an incredible individual, who is a nationally recognized speaker and author and everything. And so he was an individual that I was an audience member of one of his presentations, and I was just mesmerized by this guy on stage. And I was like, someday I would love to be on stage to speak to an audience. I have some thoughts, I have ideas. So eventually, several years later, I connected with him. And now I connect with him periodically. We talk back and forth, but it took that choice to say, look, I see this individual who's got fruit in their life. They're successful. They're doing something very similar to what I want to do. Now it's up to me to go after and connect with that individual. And whether they become a mentor, a coach, an alignment, whatever that relationship becomes, you have to make that effort to go after it. If you don't,
Mm.
then you'll just become by default the least common denominator of what is surrounding you. And so
Mm.
even if you're an introvert, you're an extrovert, decide, you got to have that choice, decide where you want to go, and then find the people that are where you want to be. Just talk to them, go connect to them, very simply. And I promise you, 9 times out of 10, the people you connect with, they will respond to you in some way. May not be best friends, you may not be having dinner at their house or whatever the case might be, but you have a connection, a network person where you can just ask a question, or maybe you can ask for advice. But it just takes that intentionality to go after it.
Mm. I can certainly attest to that, interviewing so many incredible people on the Wellness Driven Life show, such as yourself. And something that caught my ear when you're talking about this is that it's really a disservice to ourselves and to the world when we live mediocre, when we don't listen to the voice. And you said you made a decision. You said, I would love to be on stage and do what he does. And I feel like that's a little rare because not too many people want to put themselves out in that position. They say public speaking is one of the greatest fears that we have as human beings. And we could go into why that is historically, biologically, people being burned at the stake for speaking out. But it is one of those greatest fears. But to be able to, if your body and your mind and your heart are saying yes, to follow that. And you
Mhm.
mentioned that it took a number of years later that met up with Joel, and then here we are, and you are public speaking, and you have written books, and you have stepped outside of your comfort zone of being an introvert. Because when you first said that, I'm like, no, he can't, somebody like him can't be an introvert. But many of us are, and I think a lot of us don't realize or recognize that people, even people who are doing extraordinary things, they have their own fears and challenges, but they just continue through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times when we are afraid of something, we will isolate. We will say, I'm
Yeah.
afraid, so I'm going to isolate. I don't want anybody around me. I'm going to do it myself.
Yeah.
And that is one of the worst things that you can do is when you fail, when you fall down, when you're afraid of something, we tend to just say, hey, you know what? I don't want anybody to know that I'm afraid. I don't want anybody to know that I fell down or failed or whatever the story may be. So I'm going to isolate. I'm going to keep everybody at arm's length. And that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
When you fail or when you're like, oh, I want to do that. That is something that intrigues me, whether it's standing up on stage, whether it's writing a book or completing a marathon, Ironman, whatever it may be. You cannot isolate. You cannot do it by yourself. Even when I did Ironmans, it is a solo sport. I'm the one that swims, bikes, and runs. That's on me. But to get to that starting line, it was a team sport. I had to connect with so many different people to help me train, to help me grow, to help me get better, to learn from their mistakes, from their successes, so that I could apply it to my goals and we could train together, we could build together so that I could go do a solo sport, which is absolutely amazing to me. So if you're afraid of something, if you're like, oh, I want to do this, but I don't think I can, that's when you got to connect with your foundation, the people around you, your family of choice, your family of origin, your spouse, your kids, and just speak it. Just say the
Mm.
words, whatever it may be. Say, hey, I want to write a book, or I want to run a 5K, or I want to get promoted. You just got to speak the words. And I'll tell you a funny story. In my career, I saw an individual in a position, in a role at the company I was working with, and I thought that is the coolest position. And this leader that was in this role, I thought she is the neatest person. She's doing some incredible things. I would love to do that job. I'd love to be in that role. And so I told my boss at the time, I said, I want her job. And I was thinking to myself after I said that, I was like, oh man, that sounds terrible. but I really do. And my boss, my supervisor at the time, came back to me and said, "So what are you going to do about it?" And that was like just
Mm,
one of those kind of smacks on the head. So I thought to myself, well, what am I going to do about it? I ended up connecting with that leader that was in the role that I wanted. And I was very honest with her. And I said, I would love to do your job when you get promoted. So what can
right.
I do to learn your job, to understand it and to be ready for it in the event you get promoted? I could jump right into it. So I built that connection, asked those questions, just got into it. And so what ended up happening was she ended up getting promoted. She just kind of pulled me up into that role because I learned essentially everything that she was doing. And I was able to just to drop her. She looked amazing because she trained her replacement. Not only did she get promoted, but she trained her replacement. I
Yeah.
stepped into that role because I was in relationship with her just to learn what she was doing. And it made the transition incredibly easy on both parts. And so, but it was
Mm.
just a matter of just reaching out and asking that question and leveling up, connecting with people that were smarter than me so that I could grow.
Mm. Well, you talk so much about community, and again, that's the building of the foundation. And even in solo sports, you still have to have the cheerleader team, right?
Mhm.
The people who are guiding you, coaching you, leading you, encouraging you. And I love this example of when you were working for somebody, seeing a position that you wanted and really gracefully moving through that, being honest. And I think that a lot of people love that open, honest, authentic version of yourself. And then people want to work with you. And the way that you moved about that was, I would love to learn about your position and have your position when step up the ladder. Let me help you get there, and you can help me get here. And I think that's such a win-win scenario. So we're going to move into our first commercial, and I can't wait to discuss a few other things about how you can learn a little bit more about yourself. Stay tuned. Are you ready to take control of your ride to wellness? Rev up with Driven Living. Visit www.drivenliving.com and buckle up for a journey. Get exclusive access to our Wellness Driven Life Show guest portal, where you can dive deep into the minds of our esteemed guests. Sign up for our newsletter and get insider scoops on these distinguished personalities. It's like having a backstage pass to their life-changing wisdom. But that's not all. You'll also receive a free hug. You heard me right, a free hug. An enlightening ebook from the Driven Living team. Discover the science-backed benefits of hugging yourself. It's a fill-up for your wellness tank. Because at Driven Living, we believe in fueling your journey to wellness, both physically and psychologically. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.drivenliving.com today. Welcome back, everyone, here with Gary Gregory. And I am excited to kind of move into how we learn more about ourselves. That is a process. As many of us know who have been on this life learning, self-improvement journey, it's a continuous process. But there are certain things that we can do initially to really get to the root of who we truly are and what we truly want to become in the world. And it can be ever changing. So, Gary, I would love to talk to you a little bit about that too, and how often we maybe change who we want to be. But let's talk a little bit about the book that you have written. And you sent me a copy, and I am so grateful. So I'm going to hold it up to the screen. This is the Super Fantastic Me. And this book, as you can see, it's beautifully done. It's massive, which I appreciate personally. And then it's not that I'm old or anything, but I like how it's done. So it's what I love about this. I'm going to tell everybody just a few things what I love about this particular book. Not only that it's big, but it's a workbook, because when you know thyself, that's a lot of work. This is not an overnight thing. This is a journey. This is a lot of work. This is a lot of writing down. There's a lot of thought that goes behind it. And so you really guide people through. And I would be curious to know, have you ever written any of the For Dummies series? Because this is what it reminds me of, where it's like it's dummy proof.
Mhm.
You are easily guided through, and it's very conscientious of, you know, slowly going through this process, because it's very emotionally charged when we get to know ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
When we start to consider our values, our principles, what we love, what we don't love. I mean, we're going back through, our memories of childhood, of what did I love doing when I was younger? How do I bring that back up to the forefront? So there's a lot of emotions during this process, and you just gracefully guide people through brilliantly, step by step, piece by piece. You have a timer. This should take about 10 minutes. Write down all of these things. And it's just really cool. I love how you did it.
Oh, well,
Love it.
thank you. And I
You're
tell you,
welcome.
I wrote it for the biggest dummy, and that's myself. And so it was, I wanted to, I wrote the book for myself just simply because if I can understand it in a simple approach, then hopefully other people will be able to understand it as well. And this book truly came about from an experience where my wife and I took our kids to a family retreat, and we're like, okay, we're going to create a family set of core values and a mission statement. And through this experience, we spent several days, together. We spent hours just kind of going through words and crafting and curating these words, and we ended up coming up with a list of core values, and we drafted a mission statement. And it was just super exciting to have the kids involved, and we talked through it all together as a family. And now we have the Gregory core values and mission statement. Well, it was coming back from the retreat, and a few days later, I continued to process and to think about the experience that we had just done together as a family, and the words that we created together, or we decided to have as our core values. And I asked my wife these words: what do they mean? How can I, as a husband, as a father, live these words? I truly want to live these words, but I don't truly understand what and why these are the words, kind of thing, and how I live these things. And so I began to research what core values meant. I began to research principles, what those meant, and ended up coming up with an approach to figuring out what it meant. But before I got to that point, there were some kind of breaking down, as you had mentioned, April. There was kind of breaking down where I was today, because I had built up a lot of kind of understandings and thoughts, and what I thought were kind of my perspective and my filters and my approach. I built up a lot by default over my kind of course of my life. And so I had to kind of chip away at all of these filters and perspectives that I had built up over my lifetime and say, okay, I'm just going to remove my spirit of offense and start looking inward, start asking myself a lot of questions. And I started with the first question that really kind of poked me was, what's happening to me? What's happening to me? And it was, so what are the things that are happening to me by default, and what are the things that are happening to me intentionally? And by default, I meant by social norms, by peer pressure. What are the things that are happening to me that I'm allowing happen?
Mm,
Because I have yet to establish a good foundation, or I had not established these three words that I'll bring up in a few moments. But I have not established that to say, okay, this is my stand. And so things were just happening to me. I was allowing these things by default, just letting it happen to me.
yeah.
And that was the first big question that I had to ask myself. And then the secondary question, kind of the reverse of it, is what's happening because of me? What are the things that I am creating because of me? Are they good? Are they bad? What are the things that are just happening in, by default? Like I'm running on autopilot, if you will. And so these things are just happening around me. Am I a good leader for the family, for my friends, or am I somebody that people want to be around because I'm just letting things happen and I'm not intentionally choosing and taking a stand as to what's happening because of me? And those two questions truly kind of unlocked and opened up an approach where I could remove all of the old dirty filters and perspectives that I had allowed happen to me.
Mm.
And then I had to say, okay, if I truly want this to work, I've got to let my spirit of offense go. I have to stop my spirit of offense. I can't be offended by myself. And this sounds odd, but I can't be offended at myself for asking myself like these questions. If I
Yeah.
truly wanted to move forward, I had to really okay, Gary, is this truly why all these questions? Is this what you want happening to you and because of you?
Yeah. Well, it really opens up the door for you to be able to proceed into something new,
Mhm.
to be birthed into what you want to become, because we have to desire it. We have to be
Mhm.
willing to go into the darker places and spaces of ourselves and acknowledge it. And like you said, really understand that, what are you allowing and choosing and accepting, and what do you have control of?
Mhm.
And it's our response. I'd be curious to know, because you talked about the family mission statement. And by the way, anyone who has 4 or more kids, I mean, my gosh, all of the lessons in life, I mean, just tumble quickly to you, right? When you're a parent, and having to learn patience and leadership and, leading by example. But I'd be curious to know if you first learned about that through Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's
Oh,
where I first heard and saw the family mission statement.
yeah. So I have that book, one of my favorite books. It's right over my shoulder over here, and yeah, I heard it through Stephen Covey's book, and I've also, of course, church and other books that I have written. And when you work for a company, typically companies have core values, and so it's just kind of a ubiquitous thing that's
Right.
out there. And so we know of core values, but for me, I didn't know truly in depth how to live these core values. And
Yeah.
that was a really eye-opening kind of cleaning out my perspective, cleaning out my approach to say, okay, these are great words, but if I don't truly understand a set of core values, then they're meaningless. They're just words on a piece of paper. If I can't do anything with them because I don't understand, because I haven't simplified it or understand how I act, think, speak on these things, then they're worthless. And so I truly had to figure that out. And it was such a joy to really break it down into its
Yeah.
simplest form, to figure out what principles and core values were so that I could truly understand it and live it. And now that I do, and it works for me, and it's worked for countless people that I have shared this with, and people that bought the books and workshops and presentations that I've done on this, that it's like that light bulb moment. Oh, I get it now. Now I have a handle that I can grasp when somebody says, okay, so what are your core values? Well, this. Well, why? What do you do with them? Well, this is what I do with them. And so that was a moment, and that's why the book is so, it's a longer book, just simply because I really want individuals to take the time to process
Yeah.
what it is they're selecting. And there's specific words that through my research that I chose. Like there's adjectives, there's adverbs, and there's nouns. I mean, it is very intentional in the types of words that each of these, the who, the why, and the how, are attributed to, and you get to select from. And in fact, as you're going through the process, you want to connect with an alignment or a family of choice to say, okay, hey, here's what I'm thinking that I want to own. These are going to be my principles, core values, my word. What do you think? Where do you see me now? Where do you see me in the future?
Yeah.
So you can't isolate when you're doing this workshop, this book. You got to bring in somebody else with it, because again, if you isolate, you're keeping people at arm's length, and nobody's going to be there to help you if you like mess up on a core value, or you miss your principle, or you're not truly living your word. So this book it's not a solo sport. It is definitely a team sport when you're going through it.
I just love that you keep reinforcing that this is not solo. This, you have to have people surrounding you, and you're correct. During the points in life where we want to isolate it, if you do that or you do it for too long, it's a very deep spiral downward, isn't it? And
Yeah.
we can get caught up in that. And at the same time, I would say that when you choose not to isolate and you do reach out to the people around you, if they're not your people, you learn very quickly
Yeah.
who is on your team and who isn't. And that's okay. You know, there's a lot of people in the world, and there's always going to be someone there that is going to support you. And so I felt I needed to say that. Now you take it a step further and you create a word. Not only do you have the principles and core values, but you bring in a word. This super word, yours is super fantastic, which is really cool. And I just love that you brought that in. You give a lot of examples of how many things, celebrities, figures, all have a word. And I love that you give example to that, because it makes you think, oh my gosh, yes, many things and people have a word. And so tell me a little bit about how you came up with this and why it's so powerful.
Oh, so when I was breaking down core values, so my intent or my direction when I started kind of going down this path was figuring out what core values were, figuring out what principles were. And as I was truly breaking it down, looking at all the definitions and the research associated with both of those things, again, I wanted to create it in its most simple form. And so I ended up figuring out, okay, core values become the how. That is your action. Anybody can do anything, but it's how you do things that sets you apart. Principles became why. Why do you make these decisions? Why do you do these things in life? That is your foundation of you. And as I was asking these questions, these very, the who, what, why, when, where, how questions, I identified who. Well, who am I? And as I was continuing kind of digging through the research, I felt great about the how, which is your core values, how you do things. Why is your principles, why you make your decisions. But I'm like, well, who am I? A lot of us have a job description, a job title. We have a business card that has our job title on it. And that's who we become by default the majority of the time. If I don't have a business card, then I don't know who I am. If people says, hey, Gary, who are you? Probably the first thing you respond is, well, here's my job title.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not great, because jobs come and go. And a job title is just a job description that's been made up by a business, by a company, by these people that don't know you. You're just kind of, if you work for a company, then you're just kind of sitting in that role, in that position, and you're adopting this job description, this job title that people have created. There's also titles, relationship titles, mother, father, brother, sister, aunt, uncle. And you're like, okay, I was born into this. This was given to me. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm an uncle. That's great. And then you get nicknames. Sometimes people unfortunately get some odd nicknames, and that becomes another title.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I got to break. There's got to be a way to break out of this where I can say, who am I? And so I added that to the principles and the core values to say, you know what? If I'm going to have these two things, then I need to add the who, because I need to decide who I want to be. Like you said, there's so many other things that have titles like Wonder Woman, Superman, the Energizer Bunny. They have these words. And so when you hear Wonder Woman, you know what to expect, something wonderful. When you see the Energizer Bunny, you know what to expect, something energizing. So I'm like, well, if these cartoon characters can have titles, why can't I? I'm going to create my own title. And so I added it to the kind of the process, because when you own who you want to be, then that creates some self accountability to say, you know what? If I decide I'm going to be super fantastic, that's my word that I combined, then I want to live up to the word super fantastic for myself and for the people around me. So that when April connects with Gary, I want her to walk away and say, you know what? That was kind of super fantastic. Or when I wake up in the
Love it.
morning, my decision is to say, Gary, you have a choice. You can be super fantastic or you cannot be. That's my choice.
Yep.
And so it's that self accountability to say, you know what? This is who I am. This is why I am through my principles. And this is how I'm going to do things through my core values. And that was like, oh, it just made sense.
It does. And it gives me goosebumps. I love it so much because words are so powerful and beliefs are so powerful, and the identity that we create through titles. And when those are shattered, which they can be easily, right? Whether it's career, whether it's people, or the position that you've given yourself by family or societal standards, those can all go away. It's not solid. It's not forever, but you are.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so when you're giving yourself a title or a phrase or a word, then, and you revert back to that and you remind yourself, no, this is actually who I am. I'm not actually this person or this title or this thing, because I mean, when we go through an identity crisis, that can literally shatter somebody's world, and they can spiral down. And I know because I've done it. And so when I hear other things where we get to become something different, and change is the only constant, right? And so we get to be somebody else, and we get to be ourselves and who we truly are, then that's some of the greatest gifts. Now, I'd be curious too, Gary, have you had any really incredibly powerful instances of the aha and the change that you've seen through other people just because of this one word that they've given themselves?
Oh yeah. So I've done presentations across the country with, who, the who part. And I have a list of, it's over 100 words that I have curated, with the definitions. I've did the research, these over 100 words to choose from. I think it's a pretty good gambit of words to select. And what I find so incredible is when people start going through this one process, the first process of identifying who they want to become, then they are going through the words and like, oh, yeah, this, this sounds great. This sounds great. And they ended up with like a list of, out of the 100 plus words, they've got like 50 of them, because they're so excited about who they can become, because it's like, there has not been a lot of opportunities where people say, look, you get to choose who you want to become. And so when they have that moment of clarity of sitting down, going through this process to say, you know what, I get to choose who I want to become. I get to select the words. And what I love so much is when people start adding their own words that I don't have in my list. They're like, oh, this is the word. And they're adding words, their own words that fit. I mean, because the who is a very specific kind of word. It's an adjective. And they start adding their own adjective. They're like, this is who I want to become. And it is that moment of, they are like, this is my word, or this is my combination of words that I am going to become. And it creates a level of confidence that, okay, I'm not going to connect my identity to this job title anymore. I will will play this role. I will do this role. But what I am going to become is this new word, who I want to be. And what happens is they bring that to their job title. They bring who they want to become to their job, to that company, to their customers, to their team. And it is absolutely mind-blowing to know. Before, I was just like, okay, here's my job title. Thank you very much. I will do the job description, which is your minimal acceptable performance. That's a job title. But if you break free of that, you say, you know what? I don't care what my job title is. I don't care. I do care what my job description says, because I have to do the minimal acceptable performance. But now I'm going to decide who I want to become and who I'm going to be. And I am bringing that to my job. I am bringing that to the people around me. I am bringing that to everything that I do. And I'm just going to use my word. I'm going to bring super fantastic to my wife, to my kids, to my family of origin, to my family of choice. I'm going to bring it to the people around me, my alignments, my mentor, my coach. I'm going to bring it to the company that I connect with. I'm going to bring it to you, this conversation. That's what I'm bringing. And that is a game shifting changer to say, you know what? Yeah. It's not just simply this. The thing is not about the thing. It's what you bring to it. It's the value that you apply to it. And that word is a game changer when you adopt it and you own it.
It is. It instantly gives you your power back. It just instantly.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. I just love it. Gary, that's incredible. Thank you so much. Now you're doing all of these great things. You're speaking on stages. You've written this book. You've given somebody one of the most powerful tools that they can have in life to really know thyself. And so I'm curious, what are you most excited about creating now?
So I have a couple of books that are coming out. One that just came out on April 1st. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek, humorous book. I do have another book that is coming out later in the summer, so I'm super excited about that. But what I am most excited about is my daughter has written a book, a children's book, and I cannot be more proud of her for writing that book. And she's also storyboarded another children's book. And so the most incredible thing that I'm excited about is knowing myself better, being a better father, husband, person, and leading by example and showing that things that you never thought you could do, you can do. Like writing a book. I never dreamed I could write a book, and now I have. And now other people around me have seen that it's possible, because if you choose to do it, you do the hard work, you can do it. And so there's just, it's the thing that I'm excited about is just watching other people do the things that they didn't think they could do, because now that they're starting to own who they are, they see the examples and they're doing these things. And it's just, that's incredibly exciting to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that it is. It's when you've inspired other to see themselves and to want to do something incredible in the world. That's a lot of why I do what I do with the show. I mean, it's incredible to have such a massive impact like that to the world. It's beautiful. Well, I want to make sure that everyone knows where to find you. So I've had it displayed on the screen a few times for those of you watching and visually seeing what we have here. And for those of you listening in, www.thegarygregory.com. That's GREGORY, thegarygregory.com. It's also in the description below. Check out his stuff. His book's incredible. If you want to venture out and spend some time with yourself to really get to know yourself, I highly recommend this. I've seen a lot of ways that you could do this, and this is very detailed. And I'm excited to do it myself. I haven't yet, but I really am. And again, I've done a few of them, so this one is incredible. That's speaking very honestly. So, Gary, it's been amazing to have you on the Wellness Driven Life Show. You've been an incredible guest guest, lots of inspiration, lots of tips and tricks. Is there anything that you want to share with the audience today before we go?
Oh, just do the things you don't think you can do. And even if you're afraid, raise your hand and speak it out loud. I think a lot of us by default will convince ourselves that we can't do things that we can do. I firmly believe everyone has a special gift, skill, and talent. Everyone has that. That is just the way they're made. They have a special gift, skill, and talent. The world needs your special. And until you curate it, you create it, you build it, you grow it, the world is missing out on your special gift, skill, and talent. So I encourage you, raise your hand, overcome the fear, figure out who, why, and how you are, and grow your gift, skill, and talent, because the world needs that.
The world does need that. And that too is what we inspire others to do, to be able to raise ourselves, evolve ourselves as humanity. So, Gary, thank you again for being a guest on the Wellness Driven Life Show.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And thank you so much to our audience. Without you, the show wouldn't be possible. So thank you so much. Goodbye for now, and we will see you next time.